Chica. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm on here today to make a video about phase 3. And it's actually been a little while since I've recorded a video just to you guys. I've been doing more interviews lately. And even though I'm just actually talking to a camera right now, because I know who watches me, I know who you guys are. I really enjoy actually making these videos, and I do feel like I'm actually talking to real people, even though I'm just staring into a camera lens. So anyway, this particular video is focused on the purpose of phase 3. So not so much the how-to. We will definitely get to that in other videos. But I think it's important to talk about the purpose of phase 3 because so many times a lot of us tend to view phase 3 as an afterthought, or maybe we don't even give it any thought and just totally disregard it. And in those scenarios, we end up gaining the weight back in phase 3, you know, if we don't take it seriously. So I want to talk about why it's so important, why it makes sense that it's a part of the protocol. And please keep in mind that when I'm giving you guys all this information, I don't know everything there is to know about, you know, the science behind why this is important necessarily. What I do is I do my own research. I gather, you know, from my own experience, what I kind of figured out from that. And then also, you know, I get to communicate with a lot of you HCGers out there. I mean, thousands and thousands of emails now back and forth privately. So I kind of, you know, take all of their experiences, the feedback I've gotten from them, what works, what hasn't worked. And I kind of just combine all that together and come up, you know, with something that I hope at least will help guide you in the right direction. But, you know, definitely please take it with a grain of salt. So the first thing to remember about phase 3 is, for your own sanity's sake, remember that whatever you experience, whatever challenges or trials during phase 3 that happen to you, don't let that scare you into thinking that that's what you're going to be experiencing forever and that this is how your body is now. Phase 3 is inherently volatile. Your weight is often volatile, meaning it goes up and down easily from small indiscretions or even, you know, things that you don't even know why it went up. So that is normal, but that's not how your body's going to be after a few weeks. I think that's the biggest fear we get, is when we see this crazy weight fluctuation that some of us have experienced on phase 3. It puts fear into you, like, oh my goodness, this is how my life going to be now? So that's the one thing I want to just lay your fears to rest in that regard. Your weight will start stabilizing out, but that's really what this phase is why it's important, why it was required, is because it is volatile. And what that means is that it requires that you do go by some certain rules and principles until it starts evening out. So to me, I think there's basically 3 different things that phase 3 is addressing in my mind. The first one is weight stabilization. So, you know, getting your weight to be stable with relative ease on, you know, on a day-to-day basis. The second one is digestive system adjustment. So it's a time period for getting your body readapted to eating more foods, more varieties of foods, stuff like that. And the third one is discovering different food sensitivities that you might have. So we'll talk about each of those 3 things in detail now. So the first point was stabilizing your weight so that you get to that place where your weight stays fairly stable with, you know, with relative ease. You know, for example, it's been a whole 1.5 years, of course, since I haven't been on HCG, but for me, it's like my weight stays right around between 123 and 125 pounds on any given day. On a very rare occasions, it might go above or below, but it pretty much always goes back to that, you know, 1 to 2 pound range. And it's very comfortable there. And it's just, I mean, really, out of the last year, I mean, the number of days that it's been those in between those weights is the majority of the time. And that's the feeling that you want to, that's the place that you want to get to, right? Because that way you don't have to be thinking about your weight anymore, and you can move on with your life and do other things, feeling pretty confident that, you know, your weight's taken care of. But when you first get out of phase 2, you've just lost a lot of weight in a short period of time. Many of you may have lost 20, 25, even 30 pounds in just 6 weeks. So it's a drastic change for your body. And really, right after that, at first, it's kind of like your body will kind of want to go back to where it was. I don't know exactly why this is. It's just I've seen it over and over. So it's just this kind of funky period where it's volatile. It's going to easily want to go back because it's in a new place and it happens so fast. Your body's not set there. So this is totally normal. So just kind of expect that to happen. In some cases, some of you do stabilize really quickly and don't have those hairy, scary situations with it going up, crazily. But I would say by far the majority do experience a little bit of craziness that can be kind of nerve-wracking. So I'm just saying it because I want you guys to expect it, that's what may happen. Prepare your mind for it. And then you can be pleasantly surprised if it, ends up being easier than you thought, which, certainly does happen. So in Robin Woodall's book, Weight Loss Apocalypse, it's a book that has to do with the HCG protocol, and I'll put a link to it in the article that goes with this video. She talks about how important it is to keep your hormones, the hormone levels, stable while you are stabilizing your weight in phase 3. In fact, on page 143 of her book, she says, the third phase is the vital step requiring consistent hormonal balance, which allows for the entire endocrine system to recalibrate a new equilibrium or set point. Because a significant amount of body fat was lost during the second phase, the brain and other organs must readjust their coordinating system to match having fewer fat hormones. Without proper hormonal stabilization during the third phase, the body might react by inducing a return in fat. So I thought that was very well put, and it shows why it's so important to keep those starches and sugars out while you're on phase 3, because those types of foods have a very profound and fast-acting impact on hormone levels. And so while you're in that unsteady period where your weight's not comfortable and set where it's at, those types of foods affecting your hormones like that, like she said, it can really cause fat gain much more easily and much more quickly than later on down the road when, like in phase 4, when things are more stable. I've actually linked to a few articles in this blog post that goes with the video in regards to how carbs and sugar affect hormones. And I'll link to those. They don't have to do, with HCG or phase 3, but I think they're really good information. And what you read in there will basically not only applies across the board in regular life, but it applies even more so in phase 3. So, just keep that in mind. And anything like that where hormones and, foods are affected, it's going to be on a higher scale when you're in phase 3. So it's not that you have to always eat low carb forever, and then that's, like your new reality. For some of you maybe, but not for everyone. I don't have to eat low carb. But it's just that during this period of time on phase 3, it is necessary until you get to that stable place with your weight. So it's probably been a while since most of us learned our sciences. So I found a couple cool videos on YouTube that just kind of talk fairly basically about how the endocrine system works. So I've linked to those videos, and I think it's really cool actually watching it. One of them in particular talks about how the hypothalamus is technically like the ultimate control of homeostasis. So, if you guys have time, I think it's really, really interesting to get into some of the details about what's actually going on in our bodies. Because when you think about it, it could seem like, what doesn't make sense? How come right after I finish a diet, I can't eat corn and not gain weight, and then 5 weeks later I can eat corn and nothing changes, my weight doesn't go up, So, but that's I feel like these videos and researching stuff about how hormones are affected in the endocrine system helps you to see what's going on in the body and how your body really does adapt to different situations. It's just that it needs some time to do that. So let's talk about the first week of P3. The first week is typically the scariest. It is really kind of when things just, you feel really unsure of yourself, and your weight can go up, 2 pounds overnight over a seemingly small indiscretion. And again, that is why those rules about no starches and no sugars are there. And we're going to talk in detail in other videos about what constitutes no starches and no sugars, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's very common, even just having too much salt or too much fat. Again, we'll talk about all this in detail later, but you can see, fairly large gains really easily. The good news is usually when you do a steak day, it will go back down quite a bit very easily as well. Because your weight, because it's not set, it will go up and down fairly easily. So it's why it's a really good time to be strict, make whatever modifications that you need, because your body should respond. Now, as after that first week is by, you should start to see things start to stabilize out a little bit, not just like go up and down all crazy. So as P3 progresses, you will find your weight getting more and more stable. And eventually it should be staying around the same weight. Where you stabilize is also another story for another video, which we'll talk about. I have a whole article on when to throw the 2-pound rule out the window. There are situations where you're going to have to do that. Really, what's most important is that you become stable. Where it's at, you're going to need to give yourself a little leeway in many cases. But it will happen. You will start stabilizing out. Your weight will start staying the same from a day-to-day basis. So just to give you a comparison of how I could eat in phase 3 versus phase 4. In phase 4, I can eat carbs. I eat popcorn, I eat organic corn tortillas. I go out for Thai food and have rice, and there's some sugar in the sauces and stuff. I have refried beans. I eat a lot of fruit. So I eat all these types. I have baked potatoes, so I have carbs and stuff like that. My weight, it doesn't go up the next day when I do that. If I really overdid it, yes, it would, but then I could easily get it back, by clean eating for a couple days. But I eat those things, fairly frequently, and my weight stays between 124, 125, and it's just how it is about every day. However, if I had been eating those things in phase 3, it would have been a completely different story, and things would have gotten out of control really fast. So just to kind of show you the difference of how your body will adapt and change as those weeks wear on. When it comes to transitioning from phase 3 to phase 4, a lot of people will be able to incorporate some carbs and starches again. There are some cases where it seems like people just can't seem to do that, or they gain regardless. There's a couple things though. First of all is gradually introducing them. When phase 4 starts, you don't want to just eat 5 slices of bread that day, and just, I'm in phase 4. So definitely doing it gradually. Additionally, which we're going to talk about in a second, is about food sensitivities. There may be some foods that are a carb or a starch that you can eat without gaining, and then there may be others that you do gain. So just because one type of carb causes you a gain, don't assume that all carbs are going to do that. There really is a lot to inflammation and food sensitivities as well. So just keep that in mind. One thing I can tell you guys though is that very few, in fact probably, especially for women, probably none, are going to find that they can have free reign of eating whatever they want in the carb department again. I think there's been a lot of misleading information out there about what eating normally means. Most of us who do the HCG diet, we're coming from a place where our normal for eating isn't actually normal or healthy. So the idea that we could go back to that, that isn't too logical. That, I think if you guys think about it, it makes sense that yes, if you do what you used to do, you will, gain the weight back. So that's something, you probably won't have free reign, but for the most part, I do see basically 2 scenarios. One is that you can eat carbs and starches, but it has to be in a balanced way. Sometimes maybe not every single day the same amount. You might find that you can eat it on some days, but then you need to follow it by a clean day, with, like a paleo style day or just low carb in order to kind of keep things in balance, which isn't a big deal. It's fine to have higher carb days and then higher fat days and higher protein days, whatever. So most people will find that works best for them. And then you may find that there's just certain food groups, whether it's a carb or not, that your body doesn't react well to and causes gains. And you may find that maintaining your weight is just easier without those food groups in them. And that's been the case for me, like with dairy and nuts. When I took those out, I'm actually able to eat carbs much more freely, and my weight just stays so stable. So, there's some experimentation that you're going to want to do during phase 3 and phase 4 to kind of figure that out, because you can really make your life much easier by discovering that, and kind of it's really trial and error. I mean, there's no way I can tell you what your body is sensitive to. You may be fine with dairy, and there may be some other food group that you don't do well with, and the only way to know that is really just to try things and see what happens. So, but it really is worth checking into that, because I love not having to worry about my weight anymore. I just don't worry about it. I don't worry about having to do another round. Yeah, because it's just, my weight's just how it is, and I trust that it will stay that way. So it might kind of seem unfair that, if you come to the realization that you can't eat all the food groups that you wanted to, or as many carbs and as that you had hoped to be able to, it can seem unfair. But when I was thinking about it, it kind of seems like we have two things kind of going against us. One is that in general, we're not as active, I think, as we were meant to be. So our bodies are not, burning as many calories. There's all kinds of things that happen when you exercise, right? It's not just burning calories. There's all kinds of other things that take place in our bodies. And so in general, when we're more sedentary, a lot of us, our jobs are sedentary. So I just feel like that means we may not be able to be as free with what we eat because of that, Since I CrossFit 4 days a week now, I think that has a lot to do with the freedom that I have with how I eat. And I'm pretty sure if I stopped CrossFitting, that would really change. The second factor that I think we have going against us is all of the toxins in our food and in our environment. Those are things that I don't think our body was meant to deal with. And because it's constantly being bombarded with that, I think, our body can use storing fat as a way to process those toxins. From what I've read, toxins are stored in fat. And so it's kind of a way for your body to shield you from the damage that those toxins could have done to your body. So it stores it away in fat, which means it can be more easy to gain fat if you're taking in, too many toxins into your body in different ways. I think you can have some control over those two factors. Like I said, I CrossFit. You can lead a more active lifestyle if you choose to. You can find ways to do that, and that can give you more freedom. And then even with the toxins in our environment, we don't have complete control, but we can choose like non-GMO food, more organic foods. In some cases, it ends up being too costly, to do that for some of you. But really, any improvement is good, is better than nothing. And so it's like there's certain foods that are more important, to eat organic than others. Like they say, berries are heavily sprayed with pesticides and stuff like that. So there's some fruits that may be more worth purchasing organic, and then, other ones you might choose to go conventional. So even any small change you can make is going to reduce the toxic burden on your body. Okay, so that was point number 1 out of the 3 points when it comes to the purpose of phase 3. So again, the 3 things that I came up with for the purpose is basically stabilizing your weight so that it stays about the same. The second one was gradually readjusting your body to larger amounts of food and more varieties of foods. And the third one is discovering if you have different food sensitivities that could be causing trouble with maintaining your weight. So we'll talk about those 2 in the next 2 videos. I'm going to try to reduce the time on some of my videos when I can to make it easier for you guys to watch. So I hope you found that helpful. You can find me at hCGChica.com. I'm on Instagram, HCGChica, Facebook, HCGChica. Those are the two places that I probably am the most socially. So if you want to see what's up, you can go check those out. And if you have any questions, you can email me, hCGChica@hCGChica.com. So anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful. Take care. Bye.